Hola Florida! Introducing Boricua Beer and Taino Light Beer. Boricua and Taino Light are crafted beers that are rich in flavors and brewed right here in Florida. Taino beer has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean flavor style when enjoyed chilled. Boricua beer is a craft ale with full body flavor that is a beer drinker's beer. Boricua and Taino Light Beers. Enjoy responsibly.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of EDuTV. Happy belated New Year. We're starting off a new season. I am your host, Greg Perkins. Today, I am with Charles Winslow. He is the co-founder of a blog called WellTraveled. So what we want to talk about today is the importance of traveling and exposure to kids. But first, we're going to take a little dive into education, why it's important, because Charles is a pretty smart guy, right? Welcome, Charles.
Greg, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, education, right? Education is very important, but we still seem to struggle with a lot of educational issues. So let's talk about education and why it's important, whether it be public school, charter school, or whatever type of school. Why is education so important?
Well, Greg, just when I was really young, my dad always told me that education was the keys to a better life, right? So in order for you to get a good job out of school, you need to make sure you do your best in school so that you have the knowledge to apply to your skills to a profession, right? Mm-hmm. But I think also education is important because really it's something that's free here in America. It's not free everywhere else. So I think sometimes we take it for granted. So it's important because it opens doors.
Yeah, you know, one of the confusing, I'm not going to say confusing, but like you said, education are the keys to success. Well, when a little kid hears that, who hasn't been anywhere outside of his neighborhood, how do we make that connection? Because I know that you do some volunteering, so tell us how you make that connection so that parents and students really understand that, and kind of tell me about the volunteer work you're doing. And then in the second part of the show, we're going to talk about your blog, WellTraveled.
Great. So I make the connection through my experience. You know, I grew up in a single parent household.
Okay.
And I knew that, like I said before, my dad wanted us to get a good education. So I knew that that was the way out. So what I did was I just literally put my all into my academics all throughout high school, all throughout college at Cornell University, because I knew that it was a way out. So the connection is really showing them what you can do once you get the education, right? So I think lots of times kids just say, why do I need to know my multiplication tables, or why do I need to learn these vocab words? But it's all a stepping stone for something bigger, and it helps you propel into a brighter future, to be honest. And one of the things that we do at WellTraveled is we put on travel seminars, actually.
Okay, very good.
That exposes kids to the idea of travel, and initially what we do is we let them vicariously learn about different countries through our experiences. And then we break off and have them create their own experiences by using the internet, using travel books. And we're really trying to expose them to the idea of traveling the globe.
But why? I mean, why would traveling be a necessary component of education? I'm a firm believer in it, right? I remember growing up I came from a little small town called Moorhaven, right? Like 2,000 people in the town. The only time as a kid, because my folks, they didn't have any money, the only time I went out of town was through sports. We would go and play kids in Miami. And man, I tell you what, every kid would wear his best outfit because we were going to the city. So why did we get so amped to go outside of where we had come from?
Well, to be honest, it's something different, you know.
Okay.
I grew up in Brooklyn and for most of my life, and when I left to go to a boarding program, I was like, whoa, like they have white American cheese. I thought it was always yellow.
Really?
You can expose to things like that. So the whole premise is that traveling allows for you to come out of your comfort zone, but it also exposes you to cultures different than your own.
Okay.
Which then keeps you out of this bubble. It takes you out of this bubble, right? So that you get exposure to what else is out there. Because the world is not just, your small town in Florida or New York City. It's so much bigger than that, so much vast, so much to learn out there.
Right. Now, you had an opportunity, and I think all this is important, coming out of high school. Talk a little bit about that, because I think you started out at a normal public school, and then you had some opportunities, and it's all education related. So tell me the difference between the one experience that you had at public school and then the other opportunity that you had to, I guess, get a better education. Can we call it that?
Yeah. So let me jump and explain what that better education looked like. It was through an organization called The Better Chance. It's a national nonprofit that places inner city kids into prestigious public schools, private schools, and boarding schools, and day schools. So I went to a public day school, but it was one of the top schools in Connecticut.
Oh, wow. But you came from Brooklyn, though, right?
I came from Brooklyn. So the key here is that it was extremely difficult to play catch up when I got into this more prestigious high school from my public school background.
What do you mean catch up?
So for one, the level of rigor, academic rigor, was far past what I had ever experienced before in my life. So even down to being able to type without looking at the keyboard, or knowing how to do algebra, or even learning anything about science, I just felt like I was behind. Not to say my public school education wasn't great, but what happened was these kids in this school were way above, my experience, and so I literally had to make sure that I doubled up on everything to make sure that I could keep up with them.
Right. Now, did you do much traveling at the high school level, or was it at college that your world was open up to the world of travel?
So I did get to travel a little bit in high school. My church youth group went to Oaxaca, Mexico for a mission trip.
Oh, wow, look at you. Went to Mexico. Woo!
But the travel experience really took off when I got into to college at Cornell University. I participated in the Semester at Sea program.
Okay.
So I was able to go to over 13 different countries over the course of one semester. So from continents like Africa, Asia, saw many different sites in many different countries.
Yeah. Now, you went to Cornell. Do you think that you would have received or aspired to achieve that level of education had you not had the experience at the prep high school you went to?
Absolutely. I remember going into my freshman year in high school, and all the kids talking about colleges, about Ivy League, and I never even heard that word before.
Right.
Although my dad went to college, it wasn't something that he spoke too much about. And
right.
So it was always just get a good education where you are right now. So
right.
that exposure in high school allowed for me to really open my eyes to see that there's so much more in terms of higher education out there.
Okay. So Cornell, and what I tell kids, I say, look, it does and it doesn't matter where you go, because like you said, it's just the level of exposure. Because I didn't begin to travel extensively until I worked in corporate America, and just getting on a plane, going to a different city or a different thing, and man, I learned a lot. Like you said, you think that you know a lot, yeah. But until you begin to broaden your horizons, you really don't know what you don't know. Exactly. So tell me, how does WellTraveled achieve that, helping kids to learn what they don't know?
I would have to say what we do is try to plant that seed, right? Lots of times when we go into classrooms, the kids, they know about, Africa and Asia, but they don't know about the countries specific in those continents. So what we try to do is we just try to show pictures. We try to explain cultures. We try to show currency. We try to talk about food and show pictures and videos, because it's all about giving them that seed that allows for them to seek more. They want to learn more. They want to do more research and go to the library and look up another book on China, on Japan, on Ghana.
Oh, okay. So walk me through the program, right? I'm a little kid, I've been to the basketball court, somebody took me to a Magic game, and maybe I went out to UCF to see a game. So walk me through, how do I get out of Orlando into, let's say, California or Japan?
Great. So I think the first thing is, there's two things here. If you're trying to leave the country, we always try to explain to the kids the idea of documentation, like a passport.
Right.
Lots of times kids don't even know what that is because they haven't either left their town or their city. So we always try to keep it simple and say, you know, in order for you to be able to go outside of this country, you need some documentation called a passport.
Okay.
That you need to apply for.
Right.
And let's say, for example, if we're just saying domestically, you know, we talk to kids about the idea of transportation. You have planes, you have trains, you have you know, cars, and so part of this is really trying to show them that there's different means to get to different locations that they want to experience. But going back to your question, is if it's California, we really try to talk to them about check-in process at an airport. What does that look like? What can you bring on a plane? What can't you bring on a plane? How many bags do you need to bring? How long are you going to stay? So we really try our best to kind of walk kids through the idea of what it takes to get from one location, which is ideally their city, to another.
Yeah, I remember one of my cousins, his mom had never flown before, and she was drinking a Coke, and she went to go through the line, like, ma'am, you can't bring me. She goes, why can't I bring my Coke? But she didn't know.
You know, so the thing is, it's funny because lots of times people, I have this really good friend who works at a Boys and Girls Club. He said the first time he went on a plane was, I guess, a couple of years ago, and he's about 28 now, and he was lost in an airport.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to read the signs, didn't know where to go, just was completely confused, and that's not uncommon here.
Yeah, you're right. I think even in the United States, I mean, because I have, you know, some friends from Morocco and, you know, places like that. And their view of the world, as opposed to how Americans view it, is much different. They just kind of view the world as just one giant place. But as Americans, we're like, oh, I'm going to go way over there to Europe. I'm going to go way over there to Africa. And then you'll see all these different types of cultures right here in the United States. So is that what one of the things that WellTraveled also tries to do? To say that we're not a homogenous society, that the United States is made up of people from all over the world.
Exactly. I mean, I think you kind of explained it well. It's showing that we're interdependent and we're diverse, right? It's not just, you know, the people who live in Brooklyn in this one neighborhood that represent the entire world. I mean, it's New York City, it's the United States. Everything is just a vast, I guess, melting pot of different cultures, languages, customs, traditions, religion. And what we really want to emphasize when we speak to schools is that, you know, don't just look at it from your classroom perspective, look at it from a world perspective, which means that you need to come out of this bubble.
Now, is it possible, Charles, for a child, because a lot of parents can't afford, you know, on the first trip especially, to send the kids out, is it possible for a kid to be well-traveled without hopping on a plane, without going out of the country?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing we have now is the internet. You know, it's so vast, and you have social media. There's so many platforms that allows kids to gain exposure to countries, to cities outside of where they currently live. And what we also try to do through our programs is we tell the kids, hey, did you ever try looking at the tourism site for the United Kingdom or China or Brazil? There's so many things that you can just see pictures, you can see videos out there. So those social media, the internet, those platforms are just great opportunities.
Or even going to the beach, right? I was watching this thing on TV one day. Seriously, man, these kids, I think they were like out of Compton, California. A lot of them had never even taken a trip to the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Yeah. So what is the ultimate goal of WellTraveled? And if teachers in schools, how do they get in touch with you so you can come out and talk with the kids about traveling?
Absolutely. So, you know, we have on a platform, our blog called WellTraveled Wednesday, that they can look up at www.well-traveled. But yeah, so reaching out to us via that website, they'll see e-resources that we provide to give them the opportunity to have discussions on travel. There that you'll see our contact information, so you can, you know, schedule a time for us to come out to your school and do a travel seminar.
Right. Now, you are a co-founder, and we got about 40 seconds before this segment ends. Just kind of tell me how you guys came up with the idea. I know it was a result as you're traveling. Did you have the same experience that inspired you guys to create the website?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was, with me, it was actually going back to my middle school and talking to the kids about where I've been, and they were ecstatic. And so when I went back to Brandon, he said, yeah, you know, I actually think that this is a great opportunity to start something to expose kids, because he grew up traveling all throughout the United States on the road. So kind of sharing that common travel bug, we were able to kind of just formulate an idea of talking to kids about travel, and that's really what sparked the origination of WellTraveled.
Very good. Okay, hey folks, stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll talk some more about WellTraveled with Charles Winslow.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year, because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Mira, ¿dónde tú estás?
Ya estoy aquí, mi vida. ¿Pero qué están tomando?
¿Pero por qué?
Porque me traje lo nuevo y diferente, Taíno Light Boricua Beer. Y lo más importante es que es lo nuevo y acabadita de salir al mercado.
¿Y saben buenas?
Claro, ambas cervezas tienen los mismos beneficios que una copa de vino. Con menos calorías. La Boricua Beer 6%, fuerte pero con sabor. Y la Taíno Light 4.5% y es artesanal.
Eso es. Somos familia, calidad y sabor.
Visita boricuabeer.com.
Welcome back to the second segment of EDuTV. I'm your host, Greg Perkins, and we are here with Charles Winslow, the co-founder of WellTraveled. Now, WellTraveled, it's a blog?
Well, it's an LLC, but we do have a blog called WellTraveled Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So one of the things that we were trying to do is reach a wide audience with lessons that we've learned about our travels abroad. So this is for educators, parents, and students.
Okay.
And so what we do every month, the first Wednesday of every month, we give a story and a lesson to that story of when we traveled abroad.
Oh, okay.
For example, when I was in Japan, or before I went to Japan, I was working at Goldman Sachs, and and I was working on a global project. I was co-lead of a global project. And my manager asked me if I could go and train the Tokyo office on a new product we were rolling out. I was nervous because, for one, I didn't speak Japanese, so I didn't know how I was going to do that. And two, I didn't know the business culture there. And so I was afraid that I would offend someone if I go there and just kind of, didn't know if I'm not bound correctly or if I bound.
Well, the guy had a lot of confidence in you, though.
He did. But, they have resources there for you to kind of help you prepare. And make sure that you have a translator. And it literally was the best experience of my career thus far, because I got to speak in front of about 30 to 40 people.
With your own personal translator?
Yeah, my own personal translator. And I mean, it wasn't so bad. I was sweating beforehand, but it literally wasn't bad. I mean, everyone was accepting. I learned about the business culture, and I got to see a little bit more of Japan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I was reading one of your blog posts, and it was actually a very inspiring story. Folks, you get a chance, please go and take a look at the blog. Charles and his co-founder, they do a wonderful job of that. When you talk to the kids, you kind of take them through little lessons or whatever. And tell us about the one kid, like one of the lessons or things that you asked him, then the answer you got back. I thought that was very insightful.
Yeah, so we were doing one of our travel seminars at a school, and we give a survey afterwards. And the survey, one of the questions asks, what are some of the obstacles keeping you from traveling? What do you think those are? This one kid, out of everyone else, we always hear fear or I'm not old enough, but this one kid said that he wasn't smart enough. And that kind of struck me, that hurt me, because I didn't think that a kid would ever think that he wasn't smart to do something. And so it immediately reminded me of when I was doing a travel abroad program, and I met a guy named Ralph. I don't forget his last name, but Ralph was this 70-year-old guy who was the most optimistic, well-off, genuine characters that you'll ever meet. And I asked him a question. I said, Ralph, how did you become so successful, and how are you so optimistic? He told me, your mind is not your friend, therefore you need to control it. Now, in the blog, I mentioned that. I was like, okay.
Your mind is not your friend, therefore you need to control it. Yeah.
Thank you, Ralph. But it didn't hit me again until I read that survey response from that kid, and it really inspired me to write that blog post. It was to say that, in life, not just with travel, you have to have the right mindset. And sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but it doesn't mean that you're not worthy or not good enough to do something. So never ever tell yourself that, even though sometimes your mind might say, hey, Charles, you can't do that. You can't start a company with your best friend, Brandon, from college and be successful. Don't try it. That's your mind.
Or you can't get on that plane and travel to Colorado.
Exactly.
It's just way out of your reach.
Exactly.
I'll never be able to afford a plane ticket.
Exactly. And then a lot of kids think it's money. I didn't have much money growing up, and when I was in college, I got a scholarship to go abroad. So there's this opportunities out there, and we try to inspire kids that it's not about where you came from, it's where you are going and what you are willing to do to put the work in to get to a successful place. So
yeah, that's very important, right? Because I saw a story on TV one day, and this girl, she was in a homeless shelter. She won a scholarship to Georgetown. And Georgetown is not an easy school to get into, but just first of all, the level of focus and concentration she had to have coming out of a homeless shelter and still excelling. There's a big debate, public schools versus charter schools and private schools. But how does a kid, I don't know what the secret is. Like sometimes I wonder, and let me hear your thoughts on this. Are kids born with that innate ability to believe in themselves, or can schools foster an environment to help a kid to think that they can achieve anything?
Let me jump in and say this. There's a quote by Wes Moore, an author, who says that potential is universal.
Okay.
Opportunity is not. But I'm going to add something to that. I think that here in America, given that education is free, we all have an opportunity, right? Some schools are better than others. But it's a matter of who's inspiring those kids and giving them the inspiration, right, to want to take advantage of those opportunities, which is a free education. Like I said, it's not even across the playing field, but you have an opportunity. Now, what are you going to do with it? I had teachers, even in my public school in Brooklyn, that really inspired me to say, you're doing great, keep it going, giving you that love and encouragement to keep going through, and that you'll seek higher things if you continue on this trajectory of improving and being persistent in your educational endeavors.
Yeah, because I tell this story. That's one thing I do agree. By the way, I'm a lot older than you, and I am going to tell you, Charles. At one point, I did not think that I would see an African American president. It just didn't cross my mind. And the level, and his story is even just that much greater. Single parent home for the most part, partially raised by his grandparent, mom dies. This guy goes on to become the president of the United States, and he did that through education.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. I mean, growing up, my dad at one point lost his job. And it was a tough time for us, but he constantly told me that you absolutely need to get a good education so that it gives you an upper hand when it comes to trying to find a job. It's essential. And so from that point on, I ingrained that in my own DNA in terms of how I was going to pursue success.
Yeah, because you're right, and you do preach to kids, because even in America, sometimes just having a degree, any degree, will get you the promotion. Because one of the first things they'll say, 4-year college degree, right? I don't know, one of my friends, he's an engineer, man. This lady, I guess she was really good at math, right? You know what her major was? And she led an engineering team for the United States Naval?
What was it?
Music. She was the lead engineer. She just happened to be good at math. So I'm glad to see that you guys are doing something like this, especially for minority students. And Charles, again, and I'm a pretty positive person, it frustrates me so much that minority kids, man, we still lag behind. So I like what you said about traveling, right, and then coupled with the education, because traveling will expose you just different things, just different parts of the world. So speak to that. What is the motivational component in what you guys do for WellTraveled to say, hey, maybe a kid says, you know what, hey, maybe I want to visit all, what is it, 7 continents? Of the world. So how do you guys motivate kids to do that?
Well, again, it's telling our story. The reason why we were able to go to as many countries, combine over 25 countries, 40 cities. In the
yeah, tell me about that program, because I ask you about that because my daughter, she loves to travel, right? But her budget is not that. And I told her about the program. So a lot of times kids think they can't do something. So tell any kid who think that you can't travel and you don't have any money, Charles is going to tell you how you can do that. How did you do that, Charles?
So here it comes down to, ready? Again, take advantage of the opportunities that you're given. School, right? You need to make sure that you get great grades. It's not hard. You study, you ask questions when you don't understand something, and you make sure you do that every single day, even during the summer times, right? And from there, it's just opening doors. So it gives you scholarships if you have good grades in middle school to go to maybe a private school for high school.
Right.
It gives you opportunities to get scholarships to go to college if your grades are good in high school. And when you get there, there's so many funding sources out there that will give.
What was the funding sources I think you said you spent, what, 3 months on a ship or something like that?
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
I was on financial aid, but I did have some grants specifically from Cornell, as well as through the Semester at Sea program. And that was able to fund, my trips. I mean, it wasn't, I wasn't balling like some of my counterparts, but I had enough money to get to different places that I wanted to see, like the Taj Mahal.
Balling? The mere fact that you're able to, I think I would call that balling. Because a lot of times, man, I saw a guy, and he's principal of a school up in Atlanta, entertaining guy. But you know what this guy did? He saved up enough money just to get to Europe. He bought a passport. He goes, I'll find a job when I get over there. I was like, whoa, yeah, he was bold. And just that sense of adventure, right? So that's what we need to give more to our kids, because I still just think that we have too many kids who are limited by the world in which they live. And you guys seem to have figured that out. So tell me some of the things where you guys are now and what your future growth looks like. Where would you like to see this program go?
Yeah, so right now we're just doing seminars where we're trying to give kids the opportunity to create their own itinerary for a country of their choice. But we love to see it go to the point of where we're actually taking kids abroad. That's the end goal. It's far into the future, but we think that given our persistence and our efforts, that we'll get there sooner than we think. Yeah,
and the kids, because you're working in an area of Orlando, it's it's not the wealthiest, and the kids. So when they go there, do they look at you strange? Like, who's this guy talking about going to New York, going to San Francisco, going to Africa?
Well, it's funny. I was speaking at a school, and the kid wasn't even interested about the countries I was talking about. He was more interested in the fact that I was in New York. Do you have trains there? So,
but that's good, yeah, because we don't really see trains that much in Florida.
Still traveling, right?
Yeah.
So I think that part of it's, I think they relate to someone who's young, talking to them about the opportunities that they've had so far, just from a pure educational standpoint.
Right.
And again, it's not just minority kids; it's all kids, because I think
that's right. Yeah.
I think part of it is, it doesn't matter what color or race you are. Everyone deserves, kids and everyone should be able to expose themselves.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, because when I look at kids, I'm like, it's all kids, especially kids. In today's society, it's become more socioeconomic than anything.
Exactly.
Because you do have to have the money, but there are opportunities that are out there. Well, Charles, I'm glad you were able to join us. And folks, I hope you guys learned a lot about WellTraveled. When you get a chance, the blog, right? The blog also serves as the vehicle for the website as well?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's well-travel.org.
Okay, Charles, it was great having you. And folks, we will see you next week. Have a good night.